So
It's okay now? Okay. So that reminds me of this characterization of the of Buddhism as the middle path. So it's a way, but it's a way that travels the middle path. Not too much this and not too much that. So if you know something about the story of the Buddha, when he left home, he was really gung ho 100%, right? He's practicing asceticism. So he probably already had an intuitive notion that indulgence wasn't going to help him, so he went the other way. But then after a while, he was let's see, it's in Bihar somewhere. He's somewhere north of Pune. Not Pune. He's somewhere north. I forget the name of the city. Anyway, he comes to this river, and there's a boat floating down the river, and there's a musician sitting on in the boat playing a stringed instrument, and and he's instructing somebody, and the musician says, "Well, when you play this instrument, anybody who's played a string instrument knows this. It's stupid. Is that you don't want to have the string too tight, and you also don't want to have the string too loose, right? If it's just flopping, it ain't going to make any difference, any sound, and if it's too tight, it will break, and then it won't make any sound. So there's always this kind of balance thing, right? But that doesn't actually have to do with intent, because the intent is to find your true self and help the world. So the intent is the same. It's kind of how you pursue it. So it's not too much and it's not too little. So even after the Buddha started teaching, some monks left him because he wasn't strict enough or whatever enough, and then they just ran away. I mean, we think about people leaving the Zen Center. You have no idea, right, how many people leave. So for the Buddha, at this one time early on, 1,500 monks and nuns left all at once because they thought he was a wimp, right? So it's about compassion. It's not about how strong you are or how, right? It's about something that's actually about your before thinking mind and how you manifest that as love and compassion for all people. Also, this middle path thing kind of helps you present it in a more congenial way, right? If you've probably been around teachers that are too tough, nobody wants to follow them much because, well, you'll end up laying on your back, like Jennifer was saying. On the other hand, you don't want them to be too loose, but because what's the point, right? So those two things are always playing with each other, and you have to use your intuition to figure out where that middle path is. So that's the middle path story. So thank you, Jennifer. So are there any questions this morning about Buddhism, Zen, any kind of good question? Or bad question, or in between somewhere. Doesn't make any difference.
Hey, I've got a question. It's maybe a middle path question. Oh, Charlie, did I cut you off? Okay. Um,
Who's talking?
Renwick here.
Oh, okay. Kind of wave your hand because you can't always see your mouth moving.
Um, the last month or so, my life and practice has been letting a lot of like repressed energy kind of come up,
Mhm.
and it's been interesting because I've seen really clearly um, ways that my thoughts are just totally not right. They don't jive with what I'm feeling in deeper levels. So it's been really interesting because sometimes there's this like, oh, I've been making up a whole bunch of junk for a while. And so there's this awareness that kind of pops up that's doesn't have much to do with that's deeper than a lot of the stories that I have. But then there's this dualism that maybe is related to the middle way that kind of comes up sometimes, where I feel like now I've got an awareness that's deeper than self, and then my ego stories, and those look like two things sometimes. So I wonder what you might say about the phrase that you just had about finding yourself and letting it manifest as love and compassion is different than, oh, I've got to sync up these two disparate parts of my being or something.
Right. Yeah, that's a common, very, very common thing. So in Zen, we sometimes say the person you know the least is yourself. So I always thought that, well, it's really good to go do a 90-day retreat if you can, because you'll get to meet a person that you have never met before. And strangely enough, that person is yourself. So one thing that practicing within a form that's kind of a balance between discomfort and taking you out of your regular situation. What that does is allow you to see yourself. So these are techniques which allow yourself to appear, or your karma to appear, we would say. So I've led a lot of 90-day retreats. And one thing that's always interesting is that as they go along, all this, I call it swamp gas, all this swamp gas comes bubbling to the surface, right? So people have become irritated with people they liked. They like this kind of food, and halfway through the retreat, they hate it. So all this stuff comes bubbling up. So that's what you're talking about. You start seeing this stuff about yourself that you don't usually get to see. So that's one of the results of this technique. It's just a technique that allows you to see yourself. In this case, see your karma. And that's why it's transformative, because usually we're hiding behind some notion, like, well, I'm a Zen person, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, whatever you think, or I'm an atheist. It doesn't make any difference. Usually many times we'll use these things, or it allows our like and dislike mind to have us hide behind the idea. So strong practicing, like what this woman did doing these 108 bows and laying on the ground. At that moment, if she was paying attention, she'd have a very unique experience, because if she's an athlete and strong, she probably doesn't experience this much. So a different kind of mind appears. So it allows you to see your own mind. There's this famous picture where Zen Master Dae is looking at his hand. Well, he's not looking at his hand, it's actually a mirror. His hand represents a mirror. So you get to see yourself. So this, what we call strong practicing, is a mirror that you hold up to yourself so you can actually see yourself. So it isn't a contest. You're not trying to get anything. You're just trying to see what's already there and how it manifests itself moment to moment in your life. So for some people, that's not very comfortable. I mean, people will go crazy during retreats, right? For other people who are maybe a little more aware, they kind of think, this is okay. Oh, yeah, right. That's how I am. And for some other people, they're thinking, hey, wow, this is really groovy, right? So you get all these different reactions, and those reactions also change moment to moment to moment. So before he did his first 100-day retreat, this monk that taught Zen Master Sung the form that he used, I wouldn't suggest using that form, but it's an interesting one, said that one of three things will happen when you do a long retreat like this. The first thing that can happen is you'll get enlightenment. So, oh, wow, that sounds good. I'll get enlightenment? Jeez. Is that kind of like winning the Oscar or something? Or an Emmy? And then the next thing that'll happen is you'll go crazy. Well, God, that doesn't sound so good. I'll go crazy? But of course, everybody's crazy to a certain extent, right? It's just that the percentages play out a little different. And then, or it's called crazy. And then the next thing that can happen is you'll die. Well, that sounds great. Like 66% here is not so good, and 33% is hey. So when you do a retreat, of course, it isn't about these three options. It's about your direction and your intent. So you don't really know when you're going to die, and you don't know if you're going to go crazy, whatever that means. But you have this intent to, in this case, get enlightenment, or what we say, find your true self. And then also the intent is to use that to help the world. So it's actually not about you. So having that clear intent will probably help you keep from going crazy. And having that clear intent means that dying isn't that important ultimately. But this finding your true self and helping the world is what it's about. So yeah, what you experience is exactly what should happen. Actually, if you're having this kind of thing that allows you to see parts of yourself that you haven't seen before, that means it's working, right? That's its job. So that's not good or bad. That's the result of cause and effect. So that's in Zen we would say that's natural. So that's what's supposed to happen. So anytime you have like 25 or 30 people doing a 90-day retreat, you'll probably have 3 or 4 that'll go nuts. Some people will lose their do-it mind and they'll split, you know. You come to Bow's one morning during a 90-day retreat, and guess what? Fred isn't, there's no Freds here, I hope. Fred isn't there. And of course, Fred's karma has taking him away. So you have to have this strong intention and have that intention be clear. And then when these things happen, they're actually instructive rather than disheartening or scary or drive you crazy. Okay? So very important behind all of this is intent. Everything in Buddhism is about intent. Why are you doing it? We're doing it to help the world. So Buddhism is about suffering and taking away suffering. So we might use suffering as a kind of technique to help take away suffering. So the suffering you experience when you're practicing, whether you're sitting for 5 minutes or you're doing a 3-year solo retreat, all of that, the intent behind that is to help the world. So you want to be very clear about that, because human beings are beings of intention, and beings of intention are pushed down the stream of life by that intent. If that intent is clear, then your life is clear. If your life is clear, then it's possible to help other beings. So, and that means take away suffering. Okay? So experiencing this, that's not good or bad. That probably means you're doing the right thing if you get to see those things. Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes. Yeah.
Just following along in the same vein, on these long retreats that you led, I was wondering if you could share an example without giving names of one of these people who hopefully had some kind of a revelatory enlightenment experience, and then, what did they do? Did they go out and try to help the world, and how did they do that? Do you have any sort of after story as to a real life experience that you can relate to us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know because I can't remember. But it isn't like, you sit there for 90 days and then you realize, oh, I should be a Catholic priest, and you run off to a monastery or something, right? It's actually, how does it transform your moment to moment to moment life? And how do you use that to help people? So you can see with the Buddha, it's very dramatic. He sees a morning star. But if you look at that closely, that isn't that dramatic. He wakes up, well, anybody can sit there and see a morning star and wake up, supposedly. So it means waking up in just this moment. So anybody can do that. In fact, you get enlightenment many times a day. So how are you going to use your life moment to moment to moment to moment to help the world? That's what it's about. So yeah, you may like long retreats, or you're a real hero. The Buddha sat for 6 years. Bodhidharma sat in a little cave up there on Mount Sung for 9 years. That's not so exciting, I'll tell you. But the thing is, then how do they use that to help the world? So yeah, you want some kind of real dramatic, wow, we got enlightenment. Yeah, what the heck does that mean, right? So it's about finding out about your true self. Now we talk it up a lot and make it sound dramatic, like, wow, Buddha got this big enlightenment. Well, if you look at it very closely, it's incredibly mundane. And then a God had to float down from heaven and tell him to get up and do something about it, right? so we remember him because of that. If he kept sitting underneath the tree with it, massaging his wonderful experience, we wouldn't even know who in the heck he was, right? So in this case, it's kind of interesting because he got up and did something. So the important thing is whether you get up and do something. So of all those people that sat all of those retreats, I'm sure somebody did something, but you're probably not going to read about it in the New York Times. Okay? But it's about what you do moment to moment to moment to help people, right? Maybe it's nailing up some trim around somebody's window. I don't know, right? It says help people. It doesn't say exactly what, right? So it's all of those words are pointing you towards something, and that's having this direct experience. So maybe you're looking at your cell phone right now. Can that help people? Yes. Maybe I'm just blah, 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 blah. Does that help people? Maybe. I don't know. But you just do it. So actually, love and compassion is that just do it mind. Because when you just do it, you become one. When you become one, that is love and compassion. But it may not match up with your particular idea. But of course, Zen is about taking away your idea and just doing it. So many times during a long retreat like that, it's so incredibly boring that you have to just do it. And then you get it. Okay? That means just do it. Just do it. Mind is love and compassion mind. So I've blah, blah, blah enough. So now it's time for some announcements. Thank you all for coming and practicing, and thank you for listening.